Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips. And just a couple of announcements, as I usually do when I start my videos. First of all, Make Americans Free Again coffee mug. I just got my first one. So we have great merchandise on our website. You should go there, makeamericansfreeagain.com. You can get your whole winter wardrobe of t-shirts and long sleeve t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies. And so it's really warm in Columbus today. I was going to sport my new Make Americans Free Again sweatshirt, but I didn't do it because it's too hot here today, which is great. Sun shining, it's like 60 degrees, and just kind of soaking up all this good weather before it's going to get cold again toward the end of next week. Remember, we post videos on BitChute and Parler. The Forbidden newsletter goes out on Monday. This week's newsletter is the last one for a couple weeks, but I will continue to post a Forbidden video on our website at WellnessForumHealth.com. And I'm going to keep these videos going for the whole month of December. I usually don't do that, but I think during these troubled times, any kind of connection that you have with us or with each other, all of that is helpful, right? So I'm going to keep doing that. We're still shipping holiday cookies, and we can still get, some places we'll get them there before Christmas, so do feel free to call us about holiday cookies. And the COVID book, COVID Operation, we have another shipment of them in here, so if you're thinking of getting one and you don't want to buy on Amazon, do call our office, 614-841-7700, for books, for cookies, for information about careers. You can send me an email, pampopper@msn.com. Real good time to be talking about it, by the way, because we have just a couple weeks before winter semester starts, and time to get organized and chart a career path for you if you're a health professional who wants to change directions a little bit or a lot, or a person who's not a health professional, but you're thinking, you know what? I could probably do a lot of good things for people if I had a little training, and we can show you how. Make Americans Free Again conference calls. I'm going to do one every week, December 17 this week, next week the 23rd, and the following week the 30th. Note the day change there because of Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve being on a Thursday, but no sense in stopping at this point in time. We have some wonderful things going on. We don't want to interrupt that. All right, so I get a lot of emails from people who find this whole thing very distressing for a whole lot of reasons that we're going through right now. And one of the things that people have trouble with, and I have to admit, I have had difficulty with this as well, is figuring out, just trying to look inside of somebody's head who I know pretty well and wonder, how could you adopt some of these attitudes? You know, how could you turn on me, or whatever's happened to all of us, right? How could you believe some of this stuff? And it has to do with fear. And I want to talk about fear today. And the first thing I want to say, because I think we all have to work on tolerance. I try to work on it every single day. A lot of people, I know people don't agree with me and they're intolerant, some of them. I don't agree with other people. I want to try to be tolerant to the extent that I can. And one of the things that occurred to me when I was getting ready to, thinking about what I was going to say on Tuesday's video, is that different people are afraid of different things. Let's just put that out there, all right? I don't want to skydive. That scares me. And I'm not interested in it enough to overcome the fear to do it. I don't want to go caving. I don't like closed underground confined spaces. Some people think that that's fun. I'm not afraid to fly in airplanes. In fact, I've been on flights where the plane's like, tossing and turning, and you feel like you might even fly upside down. And I'm always the person holding somebody's hand and saying, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. It's fine. But boy, you get me in a small boat and a choppy lake with a storm coming, and I turn green. All right. I remember a good friend of mine years ago, we were on Lake Erie in a boat, a medium-sized boat. Oh my gosh, this boat's getting tossed all over the place. I started praying, please just let me get to shore and not die. And he's laughing. And to him, that was great sport. He didn't find it terrifying at all. So I think if we first of all learn that, or realize and try to keep in mind that different people become frightened for different reasons. And some of it has to do with prior experience, or I don't know how I got to be afraid of some things, but we all have things that we fear that other people say, oh, that doesn't bother me at all. Okay, so I found an excerpt. We submitted, along with our landmark lawsuit, 627 pages of information. And while at the time that we submitted it, of course, I paid a lot of attention to stuff that I contributed, but not as much attention to stuff that other people contributed because of time and all that. So I went back and I was looking at, I forget what I was looking for, but I found this little section on fear that was part of what Peter Bregan wrote. And I thought it was excellent, and it kind of dovetails with what I'm saying to you right now. And so, I'm going to just read this little section to you. I think you'll see how it's relevant to what we're all experiencing as we observe other people and their behavior. Public relations and its dark side propaganda consider themselves to be social sciences. In truth, as described by Bernays, they're applications of psychology to change the opinions, perspectives, and actions of groups and individuals or citizens. It's a kind of applied science, but it probably originates more from the human imagination than from empirical science. Like the more specific use of fear, propaganda called educating the public lies at the heart of modern public health policies and practices. One of Bernays' most illustrative projects to change minds was his campaign to sell pianos. He did not directly tell people through advertising to buy pianos or even that owning a piano was the thing to do. Instead, he launched a campaign to instill the idea that having a music room or parlor was the most desirable and most forward aspect of a home. Once a music room or designated space was created, homeowners thought about buying a piano on their own, never suspecting the influence behind their idea, which they thought was their own. In some sense, our current world leaders sold us a very dangerous pandemic, possibly approaching the Spanish flu. The piano room was the pandemic, everything else we needed because we bought the pandemic, or at least some of us bought the pandemic. Bernays had no equal as a propaganda strategist, always thinking far ahead. His aim was not to urge the buyer to demand the product now, but to transform the buyer's very world so that the product must appear to be desirable as if without the prod of salesmanship. What is the prevailing custom? How might that be changed to make this thing or that appear to recommend itself to people? 100 years ago, Bernays was pioneering the use of science to encourage consumption of a product by inventing sponsoring committees of physicians to promote his product. These committees were used to successfully sell bacon and cigarettes, according to Mark Crispin Miller in his 2004 introduction to Bernays propaganda. Now we see science and physicians used to promote diseases so that a company's product can be sold and to promote consumption choices such as no smoking campaigns. More ominously, we see the same thing at work in rolling out of the COVID-19 pandemic response. The result is that we're obeying officials, and many are preparing themselves to accept expensive treatments and vaccines because we live in this new room called the pandemic. We feel an urgent need, or at least some people do, to respond to otherwise revolutionary policies and practices that are creating a new normal for most people around the world. And then Peter lists the things that are being told to people that essentially are the same as buying the piano once you've created the music room. Maintain an atmosphere of fear, begin early with predictions of millions of deaths in America, warn that the shutdowns are incomplete and will make the epidemic worse, forbid contact through handshakes or other touching, constantly message wash hands for 20 seconds as often as you can, constantly message stay socially distant and wear a mask, broadcast constant information about possible infection rate, its spread potential, its survival on hard and soft objects, on boxes, packages, and so forth. Encourage distance shopping even though grocery stores and other essential shops such as pharmacies and hardware stores remain open. Spread news of extreme examples of COVID-19 disease and deaths. Suppress any critical or contradictory information that might alleviate fear of the virus. Stir up feeling of emergency. Broadcast that there's no treatment for early stages of COVID-19. Encourage treatments such as remdesivir or plasma. Constantly emphasize seriousness and dangers of the virus by creating one news event after another that does this. Make people stay home for a few weeks, then a few months, and then for an indefinite home confinement. Order children to stay at home also. Order parents to oversee distance learning of children in the home. Order working adults to telecommute. Close most service or personal care establishments. Create such onerous requirements for service and personal care establishments that many are forced to go out of business rather than reopen. Close shopping centers, malls, and other facilities where adults might find some relief from stay-at-home orders. Close all recreational facilities and parks and outdoor venues, including beaches. Cancel any elective medical procedures, including hip and knee replacements, many of which are needed to alleviate pain and improve a person's health and well-being. Make people distance themselves from each other and become isolated. Wear masks everywhere except at home alone, scaring some people so much that they can be seen wearing the masks while driving alone in their cars or solo hiking in the distance. Stay at least 6 feet apart. Keep your dogs when dog walking 6 feet apart too. Keep children 6 feet apart from each other and do not allow play dates or any contact outside families sheltering together. Forbid contact with other family members sheltering separately. Forbid contact with friends. Forbid public religious gatherings. Forbid political gatherings. Forbid mass athletic gatherings of any kind. Create bizarre and isolating requirements for establishments to reopen, including plexiglass partitions around outdoor tables at restaurants and designated circles on grass in parks. Require plexiglass or other partitioning everywhere indoors to keep people separate from one another. Okay, so what are we really saying here? What I'm saying here, and why I read all of that to you, is that we're watching, just as different people, if we turn the clock back a year, different people are afraid of different things. We don't exactly know why. Some of it's previous experience and that sort of thing. But for whatever reason, various amongst us are afraid of different things, and we respond to things differently from one another. And what we're talking about is that some of the people who were all saying, my gosh, I thought I knew that person and what happened. Some people are responding to what I just read to you. And there's a great deal, over 100 years of scientific research saying that if you do this kind of stuff, a certain number of people are going to respond to it. You're going to get your way with them. And so when I think about it in that context, it takes me away from this idea that somebody's made a conscious decision to behave in the way that they're behaving. Maybe it's not so conscious at all. In all likelihood, it's not. Just like the buying of the piano once the room was built seemed like a person's own idea, but it really wasn't. It was very carefully orchestrated over a period of time. So when I'm trying to work on myself to have tolerance for people who kind of aggravate me, if the truth be known, I try to remember all the time after reading this, and this is I had seen it before, but just again, I found it again as I was preparing for today. I just try to remember that that these people are victims. What I just described to you is a form of victimhood. And thankfully, we're not victims. And we should be grateful for that instead of maybe so aggravated at others. So I hope that that's helpful. As usual, pass this on to anybody else who you think might enjoy learning more about this entire debacle. And I'll be back to you tomorrow with more news.